Hello, everyone. Happy February. It's February 1st. Welcome to Financial Friday. As you can tell, this is actually a recording. It's not me live. And what happened, guys, is that I actually got an audition very last minute last night for 12:30 today, which would make it impossible for me to get back in time for our 1 o'clock conversation. So instead, I'm up early recording this for you so that you can access it when works for you. Now, today's topic is partnership. And I chose this topic as a little bit of a nod to Valentine's Day. Aside from the crazy commercialism that now surrounds that particular date, we can also use it as a reminder to honor and cherish all of the partnerships that we have in our lives that are making our journeys so much better. And specifically, as with all of our topics, we're going to be looking at how creating intentionally healthy partnerships can increase our inner freedom and abundance. But first, let's take a minute to center ourselves, to settle into really being here, settling into receiving any new information that we can bring to our financial relationships. You know, I wanted to share with you that I had a private client session a couple of weeks ago, and this client came to our session and, she'd had a difficult night. Her baby had been cranky and she had a lot of work deadlines. And it was so interesting because she attends these Financial Fridays, and she asked if we could just start our session with the same centering meditation. And it was such a valuable reminder for me, and I wanted to share it with you, that don't just save these sort of opportunities to take a breath for these webinars or for the meditation practice that you may have. It's so important that we remember to bring that centering breath, that ability to just take a minute and quiet ourselves throughout our lives and throughout our days so that we aren't just sort of running around grabbing at information. We're actually able to receive, right? So make sure that you're seated comfortably and rest your hands loosely in your lap. And go ahead and close your eyes. Let your shoulders relax, feel them drop. And now go ahead and put your attention on your breathing. Breathe naturally and normally. Just begin to pay attention to the rhythm of your breath. Notice the rise and fall of your chest as each breath enters and leaves your body. And allow your breath to find its own natural rhythm. All you need to do is pay attention to it. Take a long, slow, deep breath in and then hold it for a moment before you exhale. So deep breath in. And then exhale. Just allowing any tensions to melt away as we gradually relax more and more deeply with each breath. Take another long, slow, deep breath in. And exhale. Empty your lungs completely with each out breath. Take a third deep breath in. And finally, exhale. There is absolutely nothing for you to do. Just sink into the relaxation, the comfort that's at our center. Feel your breath. And with every breath, just feel yourself becoming more and more relaxed. Really enjoy the feeling. Let it flow easily throughout your body. Just allow yourself to be totally in the space of relaxation. And we're going to sit in this space for just a moment or two. And when you're ready, just begin to bring your attention back to the present time and to this room, and let your breathing bring you back energized but peaceful, serene, ready to take whatever you can from today's conversation. Go ahead and open your eyes. So, partnership. Now, as we always do, we're going to just start with a definition, right? So, what does the concept mean? Partnership defined, it is an association of two or more people engaged together in the same activity. So that's pretty simple. And the second definition that I found was a number of individuals with interests and investments in a business or enterprise, among whom expenses, profits, and losses are shared. So that one is just a bit more formal, and it can make us think, that partnership is just in the sense of a business with sales and money changing hands. But the truth is that every relationship we have is a type of partnership. We have romantic partners, career partners, business partners, friendships, right? Social partners, family, financial partners. So that may be your CPA, your bank or credit union, investment advisors. We have medical partners. Like, we could go on, right? We have lots of different kinds of partnerships in our lives. And in all of these arenas, there are good partnerships and bad partnerships. So let's look at that for a second, right? At this point, you have heard me say many times that there are certain relationships in our lives that we have to have. All of us, we have to have them. And the one that we talk about the most is our relationship with money. Once you accept that that's a relationship you have to have, right? Then we have to acknowledge that we have a choice as to whether it's going to be a good relationship or a bad relationship. And since all of us would choose to have it be a good relationship, there's work that we have to be willing to do to make that so. It doesn't magically happen, right? Making a relationship good requires real effort. So this is the exact same principle that applies to all of the partnerships in your life. We want to start by actively recognizing what the partnerships are that currently exist for you, right? That's the first step. Then, once you recognize what partnerships currently exist, we want to go ahead and ask ourselves, which ones are we committed to having, right? And or do we have to have? And then once we've identified the relationships that currently exist, once we've taken some time to really look at, do we want those relationships? Are we committed to having those relationships? Do we have to have those relationships? And if we do, if we're committed or we have to have them, then we want to consciously work on making those relationships great ones, making those partnerships great ones. Because why would we have partnerships in our lives that aren't serving us? There is magic that happens when multiple minds come together, actually working towards the same goal. And there are so many areas of our lives that can benefit. So, how exactly does partnership fit in with all of the work that we do together here, all right, at Abundance Bound? So, you know that I believe that all of us are abundance bound, right? Our journey on this earth, it really is about creating lives of abundance. And so the purpose of these calls is the exploration of all of the tools that we can use to maximize our abundance. Now, think for a minute about what makes you feel abundant. What does that word mean to you? What words would you use to describe, right, what makes you feel abundant? Definitely financial stability is a part of it, right? And yet we know that that is nowhere near to being all of it, right? We know that abundance is about so much more than just money. Clarity, wholeness, creativity, love, purpose, space, freedom, generosity, commitment, all of these things contribute to an energy of abundance, and it has a kind of expansiveness to it, right? Now, when these things aren't present in our lives, we feel anything but abundant. We feel restricted, small, alone, even fearful. Now, what we'll keep returning to in our time together is how aware we have to be of our human tendency to look for outer circumstances to create our abundance, right? So in order to feel creative, I need to be hired to do creative work. In order to feel love, I have to meet the right person. In order to have confidence, I need someone to prove that I or that my work has value. In order to feel freedom, I have to have the money to do whatever I want. So that's human, right? It's our tendency to look for outer circumstances to create our abundance. But true and lasting abundance, it has to come from the inside. Now, stop rolling your eyes. Don't groan. This isn't just woo-woo. It's not just a let's all be positive catchphrase. I sometimes feel like I need to tattoo, right? Lasting abundance comes from the inside on my hands or something, because it is so freaking easy to forget, right? I think it's possible that the most important work we can do is the work on consciously choosing how we respond to things, consciously choosing our internal state of being so that we get better and better at experiencing confidence, freedom, love, purpose, creativity, all of those other abundant feelings, regardless of what is happening in terms of our external results. When you really sit down, right, and look at your life journey so far, there have likely been so many ups and downs in terms of your external experiences. I mean, that's the same for all of us. We've all had what we call good things happen, great things happen, and then we've had bad things, right? Sometimes really terrible things happen. And what's very possible is that if you haven't yet put a lot of focus on actively learning to regulate your internal response, that it's very possible that your emotional state of being has likely had the same, sometimes drastic highs and lows, right? So good things happen, I feel good. Bad things happen, I feel bad. And the problem isn't that we feel the feelings. We're not here trying to squash our emotions and just show up as robots regardless of what is happening. The challenge is that what we tend to do is we allow the feelings to completely take over. So the feelings start leading our decisions, they start leading our behavior. And when our emotions are driving us, they don't take us anywhere good. Some of you have heard me say here at Abundance Bound, we call that being in the pain cycle, right? When our emotions are leading to our behavior, and that tends to result in negative consequences, right? When I allow my emotions to drive and I let my behavior result from those emotions, it tends to result in negative consequences, which makes me feel more feelings, have more emotions, which leads to more behavior, which leads to more consequences, more feelings, right? And so you get the picture. Getting out of that cycle and into the power cycle, which is basically the opposite, right? It requires moving our emotions into the back seat of the car and allowing clarity to take the wheel. That's what it means when we talk about choosing our internal state of being and acting accordingly. The more time that we spend in the power cycle, the more abundant we will feel, because we stop feeling like our well-being is basically tied to the winds of fate, right? That have all of those massive ups and downs. But staying in the power cycle is tough work, right? We have to actually decide that we're committed to being in the power cycle. But if we are committed, if we do make that commitment, partnership can be a wonderful tool to help us do it. Partnership can really help us stay in the power cycle. And we can demonstrate that by just thinking about some of the most challenging times that you've experienced in your life. Really try to put a finger on the elements that helped you move through those challenging times. So we can all recognize periods in our lives when we felt like we were completely down and out, right? Before we ultimately got back on our feet again. We can all think about times in our lives when we were in just a spiral of negativity for however long that may have lasted before something broke the pattern and we shifted into positive action. Now, you probably didn't look at it and say, oh, I just moved out of the pain cycle and into the power cycle, because you likely didn't have that framework. But now, what I'm asking you to do is to look back and try to bring some consciousness to those moments when you shifted from pain to power, when you shifted from negativity to positive action, and ask yourself how many times you can credit another person or persons with playing a really big role in your recovery, right? In that shift that you made. Now, likewise, can you also think about the times when the people around you actually made it easier for you to stay in the pain cycle, possibly because they themselves were pretty deeply entrenched in having their own emotions driving them around? And so by looking at that, by really looking at it, it will help us increase our understanding of how much those around us have an impact on our behavior, on our feelings, right? And the more we understand that, the more we can use it to our advantage, right? Ignorance around this area, it allows random people to have a massive effect on our world. So we want to actively start using partnership to maximize our abundance. Let me go back to our slides for a second. How do we do that? Okay. We can use partnership to maximize our abundance first by selecting different partners, consciously selecting different partners based on the goals that you have in different areas of your life. So our social goals are likely not the same as our career goals or our financial goals, right? The relationships that we have in one area do not have to be the same in all areas. They might overlap, but they might not. And that's not a negative thing at all. It may sound obvious, but I actually think that this is challenging for many of us. We want to be all things to some of the closest people in our lives. And we want some of the closest people in our lives to be all things to us. Just because someone is your friend, it doesn't mean that they belong on your financial team, right? You can love your spouse to pieces. They can be the absolute perfect life partner, but they may absolutely be the wrong person to be your business partner. The strengths that they bring to one piece of your life may not be the strengths that are needed in another. And having expectations that someone should be filling multiple roles for you that they're not actually suited to fill, that can really start to have a negative effect and damage a partnership that's working, right? Now, the second thing in using partnership to maximize abundance is that we want to seek diversity. What do I mean by that? My business partner, he actually uses a wonderful analogy when discussing this aspect of the conscious creation of powerful partnerships. He wants us to think about superheroes, right? And so I shared this slide with you, and you may know all of these superheroes and what their superpowers are, but they all have different ones, right? Invisibility, flying, shape-shifting, telekinesis, mind control, super speed, super strength, time travel, laser vision. They all over the map. I'm sure there are a bunch I haven't named, right, in terms of their superpowers. Don't they also all have a weakness? They have a vulnerability, an Achilles heel. And so the team of superheroes, they have to have this diversity, because when they come up against an opponent who challenges one weakness or a few weaknesses, there are other people on the team that can help. And so I love this analogy because it reminds us that diversity is important in every partnership. There's a value to having different perspectives, but that goes against our conventional way of choosing people, right, to have as partners, because we go for people who are like us, right? We go for people and we say, oh, we just clicked. And that can blind us to the fact that we have the same strengths, right? And we also have the same weaknesses. So partners absolutely must share the same goal of lifting each other up, but the way they do that, the talents that they bring, the knowledge that they bring, probably shouldn't be the same. If I look at the strongest partnerships in my life, we are very much not the same people. We balance each other, and together we can accomplish so much more than we ever would on our own. So you guys know that I love quotes, and I went looking for some wonderful ones to remind us why we want to actively use partnership in every area of our lives. So there's an African proverb: if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. Helen Keller said, alone we can do so little, together we can do so much. And I love this last one just because of the visualness of it. Individually, we are one drop. Together, we're an ocean. And that's Ryan, I'm not going to say his name right, Ryanosuke Satoru. He was a famous Japanese writer. But it's not just about using partnerships to do more, right? To accomplish more. It's about how we're doing more. Do you feel abundant as you're working and playing and creating and raising families and volunteering and earning and doing all of the things that make up your life? Great partners positively impact our feelings and our behavior. They fill up our energy tanks. They strengthen our mindset. So back at the beginning, when I said that the most important work that we can do is to consciously, or to work on consciously choosing how we respond to things, a huge step in doing that is consciously choosing who we are surrounded by, right? Who's in our orbit. So it's probably already pretty clear how all of this is relevant to our relationship with money. There have been a number of books written that were the result of extensive research that was done on the habits of financially wealthy individuals. And there were some core discoveries that repeat themselves over and over again in all of these studies. Wealthy individuals handle their money differently, right? First, by maintaining a logical relationship with it. So what that means to me is that they don't let money control them. Instead, they see that money represents options, it represents opportunities, and logic helps them keep their emotions from taking over when it comes to making decisions about how to grow their finances. Now, that is really the perfect description of the power cycle, right? They have the same emotions. Wealthy, financially successful people have the same emotions as everyone else, but they don't let them take over. They don't let them drive. Logic stays firmly behind the wheel. But another key habit among the wealthy, they purposely create partnerships that allow them to grow with like-minded people. Their goal is to develop relationships with other success-minded individuals. When they stumble onto someone who fits the bill, they devote an enormous amount of time and energy into building a strong relationship. The idea of coming together in partnership, of small focused groups that learn from each other, that grow with each other, it's not a new idea. In 1727, Benjamin Franklin, he created a group He called it a club for mutual improvement. It was in Philadelphia. And he said that the members of the group all shared a spirit of inquiry and a desire to improve themselves, their community, and to help others. And they had a dedicated purpose of debate and idea exchange. Okay, so that was way back in 1727. In 1925, Napoleon Hill, I've talked about him in a number of my classes and workshops. Napoleon Hill coined the idea of a mastermind, right, in his book, The Law of Success. And so what he did was he studied the habits of successful businessmen in the 19th and 20th centuries, and he realized that all of them had formed partnerships and groups to come together to learn, and that was one of the keys to their success. So he coined the phrase mastermind alliance, and started encouraging everyone to take advantage of that partnership principle. So we see its value, right? The value of partnership. We recognize the power that it has in our lives. What are the challenges? What stops us from bringing these positive partnerships into our lives? So some of the challenges are things that we have already talked about. The first is assuming that partners in one area of your life are your partners in all of the areas of your life, right? So not actively looking at the different areas and consciously building partnerships in each of those, just kind of lumping everybody together. We also have a tendency to avoid the diversity that we discussed is so important. We want the team of superheroes, right? But we don't seek out superpowers that are different from our own. We don't want, in some cases, the partnerships that we should want. Why is that? Because we want to be comfortable, right? We want to be comfortable in the partnership, and that causes us to find people who are like us, people who are yes people, people who don't frustrate us, right? Who don't stretch us and make us grow. If we want comfort, there's a real danger of choosing a lesser partnership. Now, that doesn't mean, right, that there isn't a certain flow and groove and connection that we can and will achieve with our partners, but we have to have people who challenge us, people who are committed to making us better, not making us comfortable. And that's tough. Right? We may also be afraid of going into partnerships because we don't want to be vulnerable. I think that great partnerships require trust, right? And trust requires vulnerability. We have to be willing to expose our flaws. We have to be willing to expose the areas that need work. And so as a result, sometimes we won't take on partnerships because of an insecurity, right, that won't allow that level of exposure. As driven people, so another challenge is that as driven people, we may fall into the Lone Ranger trap, right? I'm strong, I'm capable, I don't need anyone's help, I have what I need, so why would I extend myself? Why would I put that effort into working with others who probably can't do what I can, right? It can be hard to admit if we have some of that going on, but it's really common. It's common when we are driven to just feel we gotta go it alone. And finally, another challenge that, I didn't want to avoid talking about today, even though it can be difficult to look at, is when we really want a partnership. We really want partnership in certain areas of our lives, right? But even though we feel like we're trying, we're not successfully creating meaningful and powerful teams, right? So we feel like we're really trying, we know it's important, but we're not finding that we can create those successful partnerships. And that's when I think we have to really be willing to look hard at some of the things that might be getting in our way, right? Sometimes what may be true is that the partners we want aren't the partners that we're ready for, right? So what we're currently able to bring to the table, it's not what those partners that we want, it's not what they're seeking, right? We're all on a journey, and at different stages on the journey, that can create a bit of a catch-22. Right now, we may not have the career capital or the depth of insight or the combination of skills and abilities that make us easily attractive to the type of partners that we're hoping to bring into our lives. But that's absolutely not when we give up. That's when we have to be introspective, right? We have to allow for some objective measure of how our current mastery of skills rate compared to the people that we want to partner with. Sometimes we may have to be willing to come into certain partnerships as a student. So there have been many times in my life where I have chosen to spend money to be a part of a certain mastermind group or a certain community where I want to learn from the leaders and the other members, right? Also, some of my strongest and most lasting partnerships were actually formed when all of us were at a similar ground level in that particular area of our lives, where we're at a similar ground kind of starting point. We came together because of a shared focus and a drive to improve, a desire to improve. We were beginners who kept our focus on what value we could bring to each other rather than what value we could take. And as a result, we've learned and grown together, right? While also simultaneously, through that learning, through that growth, we've grown in our ability to attract the higher level partners that we initially weren't ready for. So, how do we practice this? Because I want these Financial Fridays to always be about taking action. So these are the things that I'm going to ask us to do this month, starting today, right? Is first, you can sit down with your journal or on your computer and actively recognize what partnerships currently exist in your life. Look at the different areas of your life. Some of you have taken classes with me before. You've heard me talk about your life categories, your life zones, the areas that you're focused on building and expanding, right? Identify what partnerships currently exist in each of those areas. Okay, write it down. And then, right, once you've identified all the partnerships you have, really decide which ones of those partnerships are partnerships you're committed to having, right? Or, as I said in the beginning, that you have to have, right? So there are some partnerships, are family partnerships, right? We can't really choose those, right? And so there may be partnerships that exist in your life that you have to have. Then we want to really get clear on where do we need to create new partnerships, right? So identify those life categories, those zones where you are now going to actively start creating new partnerships in those areas. You're going to carefully plan the people that are going to be with you on your journey. And then we are going to commit, right, to consciously working on making those partnerships, all of those partnerships, great ones, right? And how do we do that? I think it starts by appreciation, right? Really, once you've identified the partnerships, once you've actively created partnerships in areas where you know you want them, really make sure that you appreciate these partnerships, right? Acknowledge that you want to have them even through difficulties, right? Because remember, with the diversity that's going to make the partnership strong is going to come some differences. My business partner reminded me that the superheroes don't always get along, but we have to be willing to actively appreciate what they bring uniquely to your team, what each element of a partnership brings uniquely to your team, and then trust them to do what they do best. Be willing to be vulnerable and to trust why you've built the team that you've built. I love this final quote, Amy Poehler. She says, "You can't do it alone. As you navigate through the rest of your life, be open to collaboration. Other people and other people's ideas are often better than your own. Find a group of people who challenge and inspire you. Spend a lot of time with them, and it will change your life. No one is here today because they did it on their own." So find a group of people who challenge and inspire you. Spend a lot of time with them, and it will change your life. So that's all for today. I want to thank you for kicking off February with me, or at least with this recording. Thank you for bearing with me as I head off now to get ready for my audition. I understand that partnership is a big part of why you're here. You have chosen Abundance Bound to be on this journey with you, to be partners, at least one of the partners in your abundance. And I honestly have so much gratitude for that. So thank you guys, and have a wonderful month. And I will see you in March.